Right, so all we have left to do now is the new hardware spring and sliding bolt to hold everything in position.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel, and today's job is on the 996 Turbo X50. We are going to be replacing the rear discs and pads along with a new fitting kit, so making it all nice and neat and tidy back there, and also adding a new drop link on both sides for the anti-roll bar. So it's an easy job, something to do while you've got the wheels off and playing around with the disc and so on. So let's get to the back of the car and I'll show you the steps I'll go through.
Okay everyone, so here are some of the parts that I'll be fitting to the rear driver's side of my car. I've obviously got to do the same at the back as well on the left hand side for the passenger side, but this is the disc and pad setup that I'll be running. It is a Brembo setup, so Brembo disc, Brembo pads. The price point in which you pay for these, I think, is very competitive in terms of what else is available. You can obviously go cheaper than Brembo, and you can go much more expensive depending on the setup that you want for your car. But I think for a general road use with good blasting around B roads in the UK, this setup is more than adequate. It comes with a nice protective coating across the disc, inner and outer. This part of the disc will, over time, become shiny and mirrored when the bed, when the pads bed into it. But ultimately, it's got this lovely painted finish that prevents corrosion over a longer period of time. So really, really nice quality finish on this Brembo disc itself. So you'll also see not just drilled in terms of cross drill, but also vented as well. Very substantially heavy as well, as are the pads. So, people who go to lighten cars, and certainly for, track days and race specs, if you go for lighter or better quality upgrades in terms of braking system, in terms of weight saving, this is, it's a substantial area to save weight, because these things are very, very robust and heavy. When you've got four corners of this, you can imagine the weight there. The other thing to do, or what I wanted to do while I was in there as well, is anti-roll bar drop links. They're very, very simple in terms of a piece of hardware to fit while you're in there. And because there is no need for any sort of suspension setup or having the car on the floor when you are tightening things up in that particular fashion for suspension setup. These are things that move 360 degrees at both ends, and it's a vital part of the suspension in terms of the anti-roll bar, because it keeps it doing the thing it should be doing, especially from cornering perspective. And they're relatively cheap, inexpensive to fit in terms of, or to buy and then fit yourself, because you don't really need any specialist tools for this. You just need the space when the wheel's off, and while you're doing all of this, to unbolt two bolts, top and bottom, and then put the new one on. So it's a very, very good thing to fit, and I always do it when I'm doing any type of brake work, pads and discs. It's always very good to get in there and get your drop links front and rear fitted with new ones. I've gone for Febi. Of course, I'm sure people in the comments will say, "Oh no, don't use those," because there is chances that they could be copies. The thing to look for is actually the printed Febi brand and part numbers on the product itself, matching the packaging and what you ordered. These look all pretty good to me. They don't seem a bit out of place, and they look pretty robust and of good quality. But of course, you never know what copies could be like and how good those copies are. So just something to be aware of. Do check all the part numbers, the packaging, and that the printed details on there look legitimate and they're not wiping off stuff like that. So this is the setup that I'll be fitting, and we'll get to the back of the car now and start removing the old stuff and getting this new stuff on. Right everyone, so we are at the back of the car. This is the passenger side disc assembly unit. This is what we'll be changing, this disc itself, along with these pads, 1, 2 here, and I also have some nice new hardware. So this pin here that you can see along with the spring, they have seen better days, a little bit rusted and corroded now. Of course you could still use these, but just want nice new ones to go in there. You can see a little R clip which needs to be pulled out. That allows you to slide this pin that way, giving it a little tap here with a punch of some sort just to remove that and release the spring. And then we can get access to the pads, get them out. They do have sticky pads on the back of them. They're called vibrating or non-vibrating elements. I can't remember the exact name actually, but what they're supposed to do, you can actually just see the corner of one there. Look, just in there, the edge of it. If I can get that to zoom, there it is. Those sort of discs fit within inside the actual piston itself. The idea is that under heavy braking, they help eliminate additional vibrations that might occur with the pads, disc, and through the unit. So I don't know. I'm sure it does something. I've heard and seen people run without those. So yeah, I'm sure it's not a showstopper, but it's there as a factory fit. So always good to reuse them. Of course, you can buy new ones. They cost about £10 each. So when you think there's 1, 2, 3, 4, another side, you're up around £80 just for these little sticky pads. So I can imagine why people would say not needed, but it is what it is. I'm going to reuse those. I've reused them on the other side, so that's fine. I will run the video on the other side, but more of a speed demon type approach like I did on the 924 video, just so people can see what's been done rather than any type of talking over it. But on this side, I'm going to do a bit of talking. So that is the pads, the disc. We'll go through those steps, and then finally you might just be able to see here, if I can get this in there. So this bit here, which is the drop link, so you can see, if I can get the light on it, just from there down to the anti-roll bar that it's connected to. Yeah, just there. So this is the part we're going to change, and of course this one also looks a little bit worse for wear, and they tend to just not necessarily fail massively, but they become a bit like jellified at the ends. After all, they are sort of connecting a major sort of part of the suspension, the anti-roll bar, to the hub part of the strut unit itself. So they sort of keep everything aligned and stops that sort of sideway roll movement. So having them in a better condition, so they aren't so loose and jellified, as I say, always helps with the suspension. So we'll be adding those. They're very inexpensive, very cheap, and depending on the type, let me just have a look here. There's the new one. You will find that this thread here will either thread into a part of the actual strut housing, which at the bottom, I believe this one does. Some will just slot through a hole in the housing, and then you have this bolt to sort of secure it on the other side. So I think the bolt secures on the bottom part, which you can just see there, but on the top part, just inside there, it just screws through. So every car is slightly different, and that's the method that Porsche use. So always good to do that while we got the wheel off. Like I say, very, very inexpensive and easy fix, and just helps with the suspension. Also, while you're in there, it's always good to just check, make sure everything is as it should be, and there's nothing sort of out of place. Mine looks relatively good. Also gives you a chance to maybe hoover up some debris that gets into some of the component parts of suspension, because they've got these sort of lips on either side, so stones and debris like to fly into there, of course. But otherwise, everything is looking pretty smart and ship shape. What I will do also, while we've got the disc off, is the backing plate. I'll give a coat of heat-resistant, rust-resistant paint on that, because that's always good, because these tend to or can corrode over time. So it's always good to give it a bit of additional coating to help out. Otherwise, we'll get on and start moving through the job. Okay, so we'll start with getting the pin, the R clip out. It just pulls out there, a little hole through the cylinder, which holds this spring down. So I'll just tap that one out. There we go. Needs a few more taps. There we go, and you can see the spring is released up there. They are pretty tight in there. Next thing we want to do is just to remove the brake sensor cables. So you can see they're held in by sort of a clip. There you can see either side just slots into the pad just here. So you can then remove it from the spring hardware. Just lift the spring up a little bit. I'm not too worried about this one because, like I say, I've got new hardware. So, yep, there's the spring. I'm going to be replacing that one. But gives you an idea. And we're going to keep the sensors. They all are in good condition. But we are going to just unclip them at the back here. Just as you can see, it all moves in one piece, and just park that out the way. Now we should be able to just knock out the final pin. I want to say that these discs probably haven't been changed for quite some time. Certainly in my ownership, I've not changed them. So I would say they've probably been on for a decade, which, yeah, this pin is, yeah, it's all right. I mean, it's not damaged in a way. You can clean that up pretty easily. So we're now at the point of, so basically two options you've got here. You can remove the pads. If you were just doing pads, that's what you would do. You wouldn't have to touch the caliper. But in this case, it's easier to remove the caliper and then remove the pads from the caliper unit itself because of those sticky pads that they've got on the back. Sometimes they can be quite difficult just to pull out, like in this case. So I'm going to remove the we'll push these back a little bit just to give a bit of looseness to the unit itself and the caliper unit, and then we'll undo these two bolts, one at the top, one at the bottom, to release the caliper. I've got also my bungee cord on this particular job. It's always good to have when you're going to be removing the caliper, just to hang it from the suspension arm or from the spring itself, just to make sure that no pressure is put on the pipework here that you can see at the back. You want them to not get crimped or deformed in any way. So we'll get on and remove these now, and always ensure you undo them the right way so you don't over tighten them, because you don't want to be messing up the threads that they go through to the hub. There's a lot of talk about potentially having to helicoil them if you over tighten, over torque, or potentially tighten up in many ways. So we'll get on and release those now. So I'm just using a breaker bar to slowly loosen these off, and then we'll hit it with the power ratchet. I'll do the bottom one as well. Just so you don't send any undue stress through the bolt. So that's now done. I can get the power ratchet on it. As you can see, they're pretty substantial in terms of size of bolts, and many people will change these as well, but these are in very good condition, so I'm not too worried about them. I'll just get the bottom one undone as well now. I need to put a bit more charge in the battery because it's still not pushing it. There we go. And again, as you can see, very good condition. Now, nothing is holding the caliper other than the pads themselves onto the disc. So we want to release that friction that's currently holding them. And of course, you don't want to damage your calipers because they're nicely painted and so on. So what I tend to find that works quite well is this type of pipe spanner, or plumber spanner if I say, and just between the pad here and the outer part of your caliper unit, so you're sort of going like that, just to bring these two together, which ultimately releases the pads from the disc, pushes the pistons in against the pad, and then that enables you to hopefully catch the actual unit itself while you're doing this. So you just find the right sort of size. And there you go, you can see it's already loosened it there. We'll do the same on the other side. It doesn't need too much, it's just a little bit. And there you go. That now starts to become free. And you can just slightly shimmy that off, and there you go, that's the unit now off. And just making sure that nothing's catching at the back. So I'm just moving remember that bit there, which is the sensor, just moving that out the way. And we've now got the caliper removed from the disc. So we don't want to do too much in terms of bending the pipes or anything, but we want that just to be sort of over there, out the way. So I'll get my bungee. And usually I just slot it through, loop it round, and then we can do the same up here onto the spring. And that will be enough just to hold it into position. Right, now what we'll do is we'll move on to removing the pads out of the caliper unit itself, and I'll show you a bit more detail around those vibrating eliminating discs, whatever they're called. So I'm sure someone in the comments will keep me real on that, and we'll get these pads out the way. Okay, so we've got that sat in a decent enough position, and you can see the pad itself, and yeah, maybe you can see the sticky round sort of vibrating discs, as they say, stuck to the pad at the back, and they slot into the inner part of the piston. So what I want to do is just give it a tap, and there you go. You can see once we remove these, and of course you can take the pad out either way, but that gives you an idea now of the sticky pads that they put on the back of these pads to eliminate additional vibration. Okay, so while we've got the pads out as well, you can use this method that I was just showing you earlier to push the pistons back into place. So it just creates a bigger space for when you put the new pads in. So they're there, and we'll give all this a good clean up. The pads themselves that I've removed and the discs that I have are Techstar, relatively good make, Techstar. So it's yeah, something that a lot of people fit after their factory options. I've gone for Brembos for the upgrade, as I showed earlier, but these are the sticky pads, or the vibrating discs that they install. Now they are stuck to the back of the pad, so what we will need to do is just slot something underneath there, which you can see there. I can just get under a screwdriver and just pry these off gently, and these should come off. And of course, to line it up on the new one, they just slot straight into the discs, and you can, if you want to, add a bit of glue to the other side of these, so they then stick to the new pads in the same position as they do now. But again, the silver part here is the bit that actually seats into the piston itself, so we'll create the correct position for these to be on the pad. Being stuck is additional adhesive, which is fine, but obviously when everything's clamped together in the force of your caliper, then these should be not going anywhere. So yeah, otherwise all good. So I'll pry these off camera, and we'll get the other one out as well, get the pistons pushed back, ready to install the new pads. Okay, everyone, a quick recap on where we are. We've removed the caliper. You can see that I've now removed the little discs that were sat and stuck to the back of the pads. I've done the tops and bottoms, and the top ones here that I'm pointing to are slightly smaller than the bottom ones. You'll work that out as you're doing the job. So only they can they should force in with a little click. So if they don't, then you know you've got them the wrong way around. So that is just a little top tip there. Interestingly, when I took them off the back of the textile pads, and they're probably about half worn, they've still got a bit of decent meat on them. The backing plate of the textile pad, you can see that the circle on where the discs sat, they hung a little bit off the bottom there. When you can look at the Brembos that I'm about to fit, you can see that the backing plate covers the whole of the pad. So, not that it's going to make much difference. It just might make a slightly better seat in terms of the coming together of the pads and these discs along with the pressure of the pistons. But otherwise, I've cleaned all that up as best as I can. Some of this, is where the paint's actually been removed, so I can do a little bit of touch up on the bits that are more visible. But otherwise, we'll get on to removing the disc now. And there's 2 holding screws, 1, 2. Like anything that might be exposed to the elements, it's important that these aren't rounded off. So I recommend a very good screwdriver. In this case, I've got one here that you can ratchet, or just give a little tap on the end just to make sure that it seats perfectly. But I don't expect these to be too bad. They should. There you go. I've just done that as we're talking. So that one removed, and hopefully this one, is the same. So I will reuse these. You can obviously get new hardware for this stuff, but these are in very good condition. Nothing's rounded out and nothing too rusty. So we'll get on and remove the disc now. Okay, so we're just going to remove the 2 holding screws for the disc, and they come off nice and easy. And I'm hoping the same should be for the disc. Yeah, perfect. There's no corrosion or rust there. There we go. So the disc is off. I'll place that one down there. And just making sure there's nothing out of place with the hub. As you can see, these are the brake shoes, and they're responsible for keeping the car still when the handbrake's on. So we'll give those a clean up. There's obviously plenty of meat on them because they don't really do anything in terms of braking power. But of course, they will potentially just connect a small bit of friction with the inside of the disc. Yeah, there's no play there. So we'll give this all a spruce up and a bit of a clean, and then this backing plate, as I said earlier, I'm going to give that a lick of black heat resistant and corrosive resistant paint on that. Now you might notice just on the side, the front side here, there is a star-shaped type bolt, and that is the adjustment that is used for the shoes themselves, and we will be using that to readjust the handbrake once I've fitted the discs and so on. My handbrake is a little high, so it does need to be adjusted slightly down. The interesting thing with this is that you can come through the hole here. So when the disc is on, you just line up a hole and then you put through, or maybe I can just demonstrate here quickly. You put the screwdriver through and then literally just give it a left and right turn to adjust it. As I said, I'm going to be adjusting these mainly because they need it in terms of the handbrake size, but if you were to come in and do this adjustment yourself without removing the disc, you literally come in through the disc like that, so you can see there the adjuster that you need to find. And if you are replacing your shoes and so on, then winding this off and relaxing all the springs within the shoes themselves is what you need to do as a step. Anyway, what we'll do is we've cleaned that up now. I'm going to give it a little bit of a wire brush, just wipe down, and we'll get on and start painting this backing plate. Okay, so we've had a mic drop, so I'm just going to do a quick bit of voiceover to explain what I'm doing here. The drop link is in front where I'm pointing out there, attached at the bottom of the strut, and then where my fingers are and the socket is attached to the anti-roll bar. The idea is that you undo the socket part holding a spanner in place just to undo the bottom part that's attached to the anti-roll bar, and at the top where the spanner is here, it's a painstakingly movement where you just have to keep moving with the spanner because there's no sort of socket that would fit over the top in the way that it's designed to attach to the bottom of the strut tower. So from that perspective, that is what we're going to go through and remove the drop link. Okay, and as if by magic, you can see the new one is now installed top and bottom. So all is well there. And we'll move on to getting the new disc fitted now. Okay, so we have the new discs which we'll offer up. Of course, you have the two holding nuts that fit into the hub here. There's two there, so that's the two that you have to line up. Okay, like so. We've got some, did find some new hardware actually, so we'll use those two new ones. Okay, no play in that, which is great. Okay, everyone, so we've got the new disc in place, and I'm sure some of you will be screaming at the screen right now thinking, you've got the disc on the wrong side. It's the wrong way. The holes are not moving in the right direction, as in the wheel direction. And of course, yes, that would be true if the disc was a directional disc. And what do I mean by that? So I have the old one here, which we'll put down in line, and as you can see, these holes would be going this way, as in the way my thumb is pointing, which is the directional rotation of the wheel. The reason being is because the vented vanes inside of the disc are also pointing this way. So as the wheel rotates, the air ideally is meant to rush out this way and suck in underneath, if I can get this to see, like so, underneath. And so you have what is called a directional disc or rotor, and that means it should only fit on one side. The interesting thing about what Brembo's been doing, and I think there's a few of their brands now that Brembo are doing, is that the direction of the holes doesn't necessarily mean it needs to face the way that the wheel's rotating. So as you can see, when I rotate this, it looks like the actual drilled part of the disc is on the wrong way. Yeah, it should be on the right hand side. And of course, I did a double take on that. And what you've got to look at is actually on the inside. And as you can see, everything on the inside is dead straight. It is not directional. So from above, all of these vanes inside that help with cooling between the two discs either side have no channel that is directional. So it doesn't matter if the drilled part is facing what looks like the wrong way, they are still cooling and doing the job they should be doing. Unlike this one, which is, as you can see, directional. So does it matter? Does it upset the aesthetics? potentially, yeah, I'm sure I will get people going, hey, you've got your you've got your rear disc on the wrong way round. And of course, then you have to get into all, you know, the inners of the disc. But the reality is a lot of the newer discs now have drilled holes that potentially don't face the way that the wheel is rotating. So it's okay. As long as the inner part is straight and doesn't have that directional flow or airflow that's required through the disc in terms of its rotation, then you're good to go. So my front discs are directional, and they are brand new. I think they've probably seen 1,000, maybe 1,500 miles in their lifetime. So very, very new. And they will be slightly out of whack on the left-hand side of the car because of the direction of the drilled holes, but that's okay. The main thing is that they're doing the job, and that is stopping the car. Anyway, we'll get on, and the next step for me is to reinstall the pads. So what we'll do is we'll most likely put a little drop of glue onto the pads, fit the pads in, and then slot them over the disc just to hold everything in place. Okay, so you would have seen me just install the caliper. We've just finger tightened the bolts, so we're just going to move them into a more tighter position. We're not going to go to the end. Just going to get them to a point where we can get the torque wrench on in a moment. A little bit more on the top. Okay, so torquing these are important, mainly because you don't want to over tighten them and strip potentially the threads in the hub that you're screwing it into. I believe they're 63 foot-pounds or 85 Newton meters that you need to tighten the 2 bolts to, so we'll get that done now. Right, so all we have left to do now is the new hardware spring and sliding bolt to hold everything in position, and then we can refit the brake sensor or the pad sensors in place. So we'll slot this one in and just take note of where the hole is here at the end, which is where the R-clip will slide into. Okay, so we'll give that a bit of tap now. Okay, so that's the spring sliding bolt installed. As you hit it, just as a tip as well, you'll hear the sound change or the tone change as you're hitting it to know that it's seated correctly. And then what we've got left now is just to reroute the brake sensor cable. So we'll just clip that into the various positions as you route it back through. And that will clip in there. And we'll slide up there, and then should just nicely clip into place here. Just use a screwdriver flathead. There you go. Just get that satisfying click on both of those, and that's routed into position. Right, so now that that is done, the final part is to adjust for the handbrake. So we will set the camera up to show as best possible how we do that adjustment. And don't worry, I haven't forgotten to do the final part, which is the R-clip. So we'll get that done. There we go. So it just pushes in, just saves. It's a safety device to stop that pin coming out. Not that it would, but it's there just in case. And there we go. So that's the hardware fitted now. And now we'll get on to adjusting handbrake. Right, everyone. So we're on the last step. The handbrake is off. The car is in neutral. And both wheels are removed now that we've done the rear disc and pad change. And of course, with the Pads not engaged fully onto the disc can rotate pretty freely. And the idea now then is to line one of the stud holes up with the star adjuster, which is just inside, as I showed you when the disc was off, and adjust it until the disc cannot move anymore. So I'm on the driver's side now, and I believe if I turn it to the right hand side with the screwdriver, you can feel tension in the star, and there, it's locked. I can't move that at all. Oh, just a little bit, so maybe one more. The idea is that we do that until we cannot move that disc, and then we back the star off, the star adjuster bolt, 9 turns in the opposite direction. That should then set the correct spec for the shoes inside of the drum. So when you lift the handbrake, and the handbrake should lift somewhere between 4 or 5 clicks, I believe. It does state that you can go up to 8, but that is, in my view, quite high, and it's sort of pointing up to almost the windscreen. So yeah, sort of 4 or 5 clicks should be good. There is an additional step that you should consider, and we'll do that as well, which is when you lift the handbrake, both sides should lock evenly, and if one is dragging slightly less than the other, you can adjust the cables within the cabin to ensure that both handbrakes and the cables are pulling equally. Now, I believe mine is okay adjustment wise. I will double check with the installation of these new discs, but that's ultimately what you have to do. So we'll back these off, we'll tighten these both up so they can't move, and then we'll back them off 9 clicks, and we'll do that test. Okay, so we've completed the adjustment. As you can see, it spins freely, the same for the other side. And when we look in the cabin, you can see that the handbrake is off. It should feel slight resistance at 2 clicks, which it does. There's slight resistance there. And then another 1, 2, and then 3 at the top, so 5 clicks in total. And that's solid, doesn't move anywhere. Even on 4 clicks, it's almost there, but 5 clicks is the place that it's got to land. And if you do want to adjust the cables, that is the setup that I've got. I know there's slight difference maybe, but those are the two, when I say slight difference between 996 and 997, the adjusting, I'm going to get my hand in there, adjusting screws here. So you back this one off and then use this one to tighten it forward and back, as in the unit, and then lock that into position. But as I said, mine was set perfectly, so I didn't really have to do anything other than adjust the star bolts at the back. So I will put all that back together. But otherwise, that is it. That is new discs, pads, and of course not forgetting the little drop links with the adjustment of the shoes inside of the disc.
Okay, so we've got the job done. That is the new discs, new pads, new fitting kit, new anti-roll bar, drop links installed. We've adjusted the handbrake with the shoes inside of the drum disc itself, just to make sure that everything is locking in place as it should. So all good there. I hope you found this video enjoyable and useful. If you're about to do this job yourself, just walking through those steps should be pretty straightforward. A couple of hours here and there to get everything done. Obviously a little bit of sprucing up as I did on mine. If you like this type of content, please do consider subscribing and follow me also on Instagram. The next video on the 996 probably going to be a month or two away. I've got a few other little things that I want to do on the front of the car, so we'll get that done soon, but we'll probably be back out on the 924 for the next set of videos. But if you like this, please do consider following and subscribing, and the next videos will be along very soon.